Rob Hornby, last year's winning rider, taking the ride, and he'll be the last one forward for the July Cup of 2023. Here's Simon Holtz.
Ready. And they're away. It wasn't great from Shaquile. He was slow, probably not as slow as he was at Royal Ascot, though. For this Group 1 PertempsNetWork July Cup, and Art Power is fast into stride, the grey. Leads by a length and a half to Little Big Bear. Vadream is third, Azure Blue on the near side in a noseband. Followed by Cardam, who's very keen indeed. Preceded by Kinross. Shaquile now making rapid headway, going up into second, chasing Art Power now. And at the back is Run to Freedom as they race through the first quarter mile, and Shaquile taking off to join Art Power. They're followed then by Kinross, now moving into third place. Vadream, Little Big Bear, Azure Blue on the near side, Run to Freedom and Cardem as they race on now towards the final 2 furlongs, and Shaquile quickly recovered the ground after a slow start, but he's being pushed along. Art Power, here's Azure Blue on the left, running on well from Vadream, then Run to Freedom, Kinross, and behind these Cardem, Little Big Bear is well beaten off. Shaquile leads the way up the hill inside the final furlong. It's Shaquile who leads. Run to Freedom running a big race from Kinross and then Art Power, but Shaquile muscling home, and he's clear by 2 lengths. The Royal Ascot winner doubles up in the July Cup from Kinross, and Run to Freedom fighting it out for second. Then Art Power back in 4th place, and behind those Cardem, and the rest were well beaten off.
A mighty horse, so much talent, so much speed, and he's won the July Cup. Beaten his elders today, a second Group 1 victory for Shaquile, the Commonwealth Cup winner. He fluffed the start there, came home strong. Today, he missed the break slightly less exaggeratedly, but made a massive, wild mid-race move, and you thought he cannot possibly sustain that. Taking off with Rossa Ryan in the mid part of this contest, but he held on because he was simply way better than the others. He's returned the 5-2 joint favourite. Run to Freedom, another Group 1 second for him, and he didn't break that sharply either. And third was Kinross. Fourth was Art Power, who set the pace. Little Big Bear dropped out very, very rapidly when interfered with after his chance had gone. Clearly something amiss with Little Big Bear, not with Shaquile. And look at him here, reefing and pulling, desperate to go faster, and in the end, he takes control. And Rossa Ryan has to just say, all right then, if that's what you want to do, off you go, and he wins the July Cup.
Yeah, he's a tank, isn't he? He's a tank. He's got so much ability, this horse, and so much pace. Back to 6 furlongs has been the making of him, and I think that's a decision that Rossa has made himself. He doesn't want to fight him anymore after that first furlong of the race. Shaquile wants to go harder and faster. He just allows him to stride on, allowed him to roll forward, use his ability, use his pace, and essentially that decision not to fight him, I think, has been one that has managed to win him the race to some extent. He's the best horse in the field, but if he'd have continued to pull in the way that he was for the first furlong, the end product might not have been there in the way that it was when he was let roll like he was.
And this race is supposed to be the great meeting point between the 3-year-olds from Royal Ascot in the early part of the season and the established sprinters. And Shaquile is dominant here. It's a small field, but he's beaten the runner-up in the Champions Sprint and his conqueror that day, Run to Freedom and Kinross. And although the runner-up is an outsider, he's a horse with Group 1 form, and in all honesty, it never looked as though any other horse was going to win this.
It's the 1-2, isn't it, from the Champions Sprint last year, and Shaquile, his only defeat so far has come in that Acomb last season when he clearly didn't fire over 7 furlongs. So funny to think, actually, that he did make a winning debut, this horse, over 7 furlongs. So that was kind of the plan at that point, but since they've brought him back to 6, he remains unbeaten.
And like our 2-year-old winner earlier on, Shaquile is out of a mare by Galileo. So class coming through the dam side. Not exactly bred to be a sprinter.
By Charm Spirit.
Sprinter he most certainly is. And he's done it on very fast ground at Ascot. He's done it on quite slow ground here. One stiff track, one track that requires that much more speed. The way you watch him run through his race today, Martin, if Julie Camacho turned round to you and said, I'd like to run him in the Numthorpe, you wouldn't dissuade her, would you?
No, I mean, he's got loads of pace. Whether they will do that, I don't know. It would be.
Love to see them do it.
You'd love to see that. See, I know what you mean, but then they'll get further away from him in a 5 furlong sprint, won't they, in the early part? If he does that, if he does his thing at the stalls again.
You think of brilliant winners of the July Cup. You know, horses who've shown wow ability. Horses like Mozart and horses like Oasis Dream of Choisir in this, and in those days it was considered de rigueur that you pressed forward to the Nunthorpe.
Oh, they might well do. I mean, he's got so much pace. I think he's from the family of Danehurst, isn't he? This horse on the dam side. So you go further back, dig a little bit deeper. There are some fast horses through the family, and look, he's exactly that, isn't he? He needs to be sprinting, whether it's 6 or if they dare drop back to 5. He certainly doesn't want to be going any further, and he won't be doing. But they've done a tremendous job with him. He looked impeccable before the race today, and just how they've managed to control him and nurture him, because he is a little bit tricky. And yet, for him to have only been defeated once in his career, I think is testament to the job that Julie Camacho and Steve Brown have done with him.
It's a bit of a purple patch for Rossa Ryan as well. A brace of winners at Royal Ascot. Then, of course, Bucanero Fuerte the other day in the Railway Stakes in Ireland, Group 2.
He's become a go-to, hasn't he? A go-to man.
Today, he has Group 1 success, courtesy of a very, very talented horse in Shaquile. That's a very special performance from this horse. What an afternoon it's turned out to be.
And you shouldn't underestimate the ride. Like I say, I mean, I know Shaquille wanted to take control, but sometimes it would be easy not to allow him to stride forward and just think that at that point he was going to just take off and bolt and do too much. But Rossa let him go forward, and then he grabbed him back and got a hold of him to some extent and was able to control him crucially through the middle of the race, where he might have just taken off and done too much, but he didn't allow him to do it. He quickly got him back, and he was able to then produce that sparkling performance and essentially just outclass good horses in behind, multiple Group 1 winners in behind him, and he was just way too good for them.
Owner Martin Hughes had the decision after Ryan Moore made himself unavailable to ride this horse, who was going to get the sit, and Rossa Ryan had some success for him with horses trained by Richard Hannon, and he was the man who got the call up. Yeah, he's a very patient jockey who's very good at settling horses, but even he had 0 shots after they'd gone about a furlong here.
Yeah, I mean, were it not for his slow starts and sort of his issues with the stalls, there wouldn't be anything that you could crab with him, would there? But it's always going to be a question. On other days going forward, maybe it will get him beat, but at the moment he's just too good. But
I wonder now, Martin, whether, you know, if he does hit the lids and if he does break well, whether they just say, go on then, get on with it, because he's not minded being in front here.
I think they'd have to, yeah. I think he'd be fine. I mean, he's been in front of for this race for probably 60-70% of it, hasn't he? Once he was pulled out and let go forward, he was sort of in a narrow lead through the middle part of the race, really, and yeah, he hasn't got an issue with that. Ultimately, it's quite simple. He can run fast.
What a horse he is. And it's just so exciting when a 3-year-old wins this race. You always imagine what the future might hold.
Starman, was he the last 3-year-old?
Starman for Ed Walker. Great big horse. Was he 3 when he won it?
Was he? That's a good question.
I'm sure he was he? Not sure he was.
No, he was lightly raced.
He was 4. Yeah, the last 3-year-old was 10 Sovereigns, and before that US Navy Flag, Harry Angel, Muhara, Dream Ahead, Saki's Secret, Oasis Dream, I mentioned Mozart, Stravinsky, Compton Place, Owington, Polish Patriot, Green Desert, Rajdal, Marwell, More Style.
Plenty of them.
They're the 3-year-olds in the last 45 years to have won this race.
Starman was second season, wasn't he? But he was a 4-year-old.
Exactly that. So the first 3-year-old since 2019, but this time not a Ballydoyle 3-year-old, a 3-year-old hailing from the Yorkshire stable of Julie Camacho, owned by Martin Hughes, ridden by Rossa Ryan, in control of everyone and everything from a long way out. Shaquille invincible in the PertempsNetWork julyCup.
Yeah, Rossa Ryan, you could see his delight with that success, a first top-level success for Rossa. Well done to him with that Group 1. And I hope he gets the plaudits, as the guys were saying, because as she